Today we will explore digital democracy in Ukraine. By digital democracy, we mean the collective use of information and communication technology for practices of politics and democracy in both online and offline environments, according to the definition of Van Dijk and Hacker. First, it is useful to view the digital democracy conceptually. Digital democracy can be manifested in three ways: horizontally, citizens to citizens, where they communicate among themselves; bottom up, citizens to government, when citizens propose or influence decisions by the government; and top down, government to citizens, when the government provides information and interacts with citizens upon its own initiative. There are three pillars of digital democracy: civic education, when citizens basically are explained how democracy works; transparency, when the government provides information to the citizens and is open with all its procedures; participation, when citizens influence policymaking or at least provide some inputs; and accountability, when the government is responsive and reporting to the citizens. Digital democracy can affect five stages of policymaking cycle: agenda setting, when the topics of policies are being decided; policy formulation, when these policies are being debated and formulated in a draft documents or things like that; decision making, where basically these policies are being decided upon via voting, referendum, or other means; policy implementation, when these are put into practice by the government, citizens, or both; and policy evaluation, which means that these procedures are being monitored and reflected upon at the end. Although elements of digital democracy were present in Ukraine since 2010s, the phenomenon has been booming since 2014. Euromaidan and the Revolution of Dignity mobilized people for social action. After the change of government, this energy was channeled into self-organization to help counter Russia's belligerent hybrid aggression in Crimea and Donbass, as well as in reforms in central and local government. Newly elected President Petro Poroshenko, his administration, renewed parliament, the appointed executive government, and the newly established state agency for electronic governance were open and willing to introduce good governance reforms. These included reforms in the areas of electronic governance, e-governance, and electronic democracy, shortly democracy, as they were called at that time. These reforms were streamlined by multi-stakeholder networks and coalitions comprised of civil servants, civic activists, business associations, scholars, and international development projects. As a result, Ukraine introduced multiple web-based e-services. Further, we will focus on the participation aspect of digital democracy in Ukraine. In terms of specific e-participation formats, collaborative platforms with multiple tools such as Civil Society App, e-solutions, Open City, and Smart City were among the first to emerge. In 2014, legislative grounds for electronic appeals, electronic petitions, and electronic consultations were laid and introduced in functioning e-tools subsequently. Initially, these were pioneered by central authorities. Then the decentralization reform fueled digital democracy at local scale. The core idea of the reform was to strengthen the mandate and financial capacities of the local authorities. By the end of the reform, local budgets increased more than fourfold and were used on the discretion of local communities. Consequently, local participatory budgeting was established in 2015. In the recent years, authorities receive almost 1 million of electronic appeals, as well as process over 10,000 e-petitions, e-consultations, and participatory budgets annually. For example, the Unified Platform for Local Electronic Democracy, or shortly EDEM, was designed for better communication between citizens and authorities, for better governance and development local communities. Although its elements were introduced earlier, as a single platform, it was introduced in 2018, and currently it provides such participation tools as open community, local petitions, public budget, public consultations, and school public budget. So let's see these instruments one by one. The local electronic petition service allows urban dwellers to influence the development of their communities by filing petitions with the authorities. In total, 400 communities in Ukraine joined this service. Over 30,000 were submitted and almost 3 million votes were collected from around 1 million users. These are pretty impressive numbers as for Ukraine as a big country. The electronic public consultation service enables local governments to solicit suggestions from residents regarding the development of cities and communities. In total, around 350 communities joined this service, and around 3,000 consultations were conducted. So these numbers are a bit lower. However, this is important because they influence more global aspects of policies in these communities. The participatory budgeting service enables residents to initiate their own projects for local development and or influence the allocation of specified portions of local budgets for voting for various projects. So this means that people propose their projects, they debate on them, they decide, and these are mandatory for authorities to implement. Overall, more than 250 communities joined this online system. This is around 1/3 of communities in Ukraine. Around 10,000 projects were registered for voting and over 1 million users voted for them. This is a pretty impressive number considering that in Ukraine currently there are 20 people living in the country and maybe about the same number of Ukrainians abroad. So this basically means that let's say every 20th person living in the country voted for these participatory budgeting projects, which is pretty also high number considering that many people live in big cities and they have a lot of issues to process. The school participatory budget service allows students to vote for projects in their educational institutions and improve both the learning process and leisure. Overall, this online system was introduced in over 200 schools in over 20 communities in Ukraine. There, over 65,000 students have voted for over 800 projects. Of course, this is kind of larger small scale thing. However, this allows kids to learn democracy by practice, already being at school. Participatory budgeting has demonstrated multiple positive effects on the quality of life, residence, and local self-governance. Specifically, participatory budgeting improved civic education, boosted civic activism, and empowered locals. Moreover, it strengthened capacities of local officials, interaction between the public and the authorities, the quality of democracy, quality and efficiency of local self-governance. Really impressive social effects. This is why this tool has been spreading out and strengthening, and its budgets are increasing over time, as well as participation of people who vote for these projects. Well, to be fair, participatory budgeting was stalled during the COVID pandemic when there were lockdowns and other priorities, as well as it has been slowed down in Ukraine during Russia's full-scale invasion. However, it has been reviving in the recent years. Another notable digital democracy format is electronic voting. In Ukraine, it took multiple forms. For example, binding electronic voting for participatory budgeting projects, which we have discussed before, these were running from 2015. Also, Ukraine has advisory internet voting for open government policies, specifically co-creation of nationwide open government partnership national action plans. These were run in 2016 and 18 and did influence their policies, priorities of the central government. Ukraine also has budding internet elections to civic councils at government agencies, such as the Council for Civic Control at the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine. The voting took place between 2015-2020 and is supposed to be continued as well. Impressively and notably, Ukraine has blockchain-based internet elections to civic councils at government agencies, in particular to the supervisory board of the Ukrainian Cultural Foundation. Such internet elections took place in 2017. Another exotic format is binding democracy-powered elections to the Civic Participatory Budgeting Commission in 2017 to 2020. Here in democracy means that the CSOs or civil society organizations that pass the threshold had a kind of randomly selected representatives among themselves to being represented at this commission. This is a format which was developed already in Athens and is actively practiced around the world in some places to kind of eliminate any elements of influence and to make another version of fair appointment. Ukraine also has a well-developed ecosystem of open data analytics and oversight, which contributes to the monitoring evaluation stage of policymaking. Open data is increasingly disclosed for public budget and public spending. In this area, there is the e-data portal containing open budget, which allows the analysis of public budget, and also spending, which allows the analysis of public spending. Besides, the monitoring of financial flows is performed by the search analytical system 007 and the messenger bot 007, and also the links between contracting authorities and contractors analyzed by BI bot. To analyze public procurements and ensure that it's performed with integrity and according to the procedures, there are powerful analytical modules that utilize Prozoro e-procurement system data. And additionally, there are independent online monitoring initiatives that are run by civil society and business, such as YouControl and Open Data Bot, which analyze public procurement participants, as well as Prozoro Bot, Anti-Corruption Monitor, Clarity Project, Zakupili, and SAP KC tools, which monitor purchases themselves. A model example, Dozoro, allows volunteer analysts to identify questionable procurements. This e-platform engages over 200,000 unique users annually, which is indeed an impressive number because these are volunteer people who help identify corrupt procurements. Then this data is used by other NGOs or authorities to fix violations, open criminal cases, and apply sanctions to the corrupt procurement and those participants with who lack integrity. The abundance of open data also induced journalistic investigations. For example, an independent project declarations republishes official data on income and asset spending, real estate, and vehicles of public officials. And its BI module presents the data by government agency, year, region, performs risk analysis, and enables downloading open data. So this was enabled by the law and practice of publishing e-asset declarations of public officials. Basically, around 1 million of civil servants in Ukraine submit these declarations. This allows their analysis by different big data tools. Furthermore, the initiative Texty, which means texts, publishes and visualizes journalist investigations. Due to them, the most audacious corrupt cases were stopped. The next breakthrough in digital democracy has occurred since 1919. The newly elected President Volodymyr Zelensky, his office, renewed parliament, and appointed executive government, and the newly established Ministry of Digital Transformation with its chief digital transformation officers pushed forward their vision of digital transformation, as well as the state in the smartphone, which prioritizes mobile-first e-services, which is basically a new step bringing this e-governance and e-democracy from desktop to mobile devices, allowing more users to use them. Russia's full-scale invasion to Ukraine in 2020 once again mobilized Ukrainians to counter the hybrid invasion and also by self-organizing in the digital realm, which resulted in digital resistance and resilience. Moreover, the rebuilding of material infrastructure destroyed by Russia required immense efforts of calculating, prioritizing, fundraising, and managing their recovery. This was facilitated by digital means too. In response to Russia's cyber attacks, Ukraine has rolled out its own system of cyber defense and counter-offense. In this context, Ukraine's action to counter Russia's cyber attacks can be defined as digital resilience, as a part of wider societal resilience. We can locate these cases in two axes. Axis X, top-down or bottom-up initiative, and axis Y, domestic actor single stakeholder or domestic actor multi-stakeholder or international initiative. This yields 6 types of digital resilience in Ukraine: governmental, government-led, intergovernmental, hacktivist-led, and inter-hacktivist cyber resilience. So far, the most widely advertised and probably the most quantitatively massive are the governmental, multi-stakeholder government-led, and intergovernmental ones. Grassroots hacktivists and inter-hacktivist activities against Russia are allegedly qualitatively valuable, however they are more covert and therefore difficult to estimate. Finally, multi-stakeholder hacktivist-led joint government activist cyber activity is scarce, if any. This indicates a peculiar asymmetry in the relations between the government and the IT community with the missing puzzle piece. Nevertheless, the available 3 pillars of digital resistance constitute a loose yet robust system combining hierarchy, heterarchy, and a hierarchy with multiple semi-autonomous elements. So basically, different structural formats allow for a more powerful and resilient resistance. Since 2022, Ukrainians use multiple digital tools to support countering Russia's invasion. Lay citizens help locate Russian troops inside Ukraine using such instruments as Evorok chatbots, Top Russian Warbot, and Bachu Info. Furthermore, they facilitate collecting evidence for Russia's war crimes via Dokaz portal, War Crime Bot, and Russian War Tribunal Bot. But it's not only about war, it's also about reconstruction. Therefore, the Digital Restoration Ecosystem for Accountable Management, or shortly DREAM, has been established as a state project that from 2023 has created a digital route for all development projects in Ukraine and prioritizes transparency at all stages of implementation. The DREAM system is synchronized with the existing Ukrainian public procurement systems, including the award-winning Prozoro public procurement e-system. Each restoration project registered in DREAM has its information published in open data format and accessible via API for straightforward civic oversight. Notably, the DREAM platform is not merely a top-down bureaucratic structure. It has the capacity to channel the grassroots participation of everyday citizens via the Electronic Democracy Module, or EDM. Moreover, Ukrainians harness the power of machine learning and AI, artificial intelligence, during wartime in multiple domains. These include the following application areas: to help map lands that require demining and have been demined, to identify war-damaged infrastructure, to detect Russian troops from satellite images, to strengthen cybersecurity and verify efficiency indicators, to prevent corruption in public administration, as well as to increase the transparency of legislation. As a result of all these efforts, Ukraine's advance in digital governance and digital democracy was acknowledged in international rankings. According to the United Nations Governance Survey 2022, for example, Ukraine was ranked very high in e-government and high in e-participation. Furthermore, the Open Data Maturity Report 2022 ranked Ukraine together with France as top 2 trendsetters in Europe. Moreover, Ukraine's digital democracy received international recognition as awards. In 2018, Prozoro was recognized in top 12 Open Government Partnership Star Reforms. Since 2019, DIA has become internationally recognized digital government brand that inspired Estonia to develop its own mobile app mRig. In sum, Ukraine's digital democracy is a vibrant domain that adapts to revolutions and wars, but also harnesses digital technologies for good governance purposes. Thank you very much.